I want to talk about this transition management toolkit, because you can start, I want you to start to think about that in the context of the change you just wrote down. It's only got five aspects. It's easier. We're going to talk about honoring, affirming, and depicting. We're going to talk about engaging and examining. So this is a toolkit literally you can learn in 5 or 10 minutes. You can apply it Monday and start to teach others, and we can pass it on and spread it around starting Tuesday. So the first one is honor. What do I mean by that? Well, often when we start to talk about a presentation or an initiative, what we do is we start to talk about in almost a justification. How many finance people we have here? Finance people. So we're good at justifying projects. We get permission. We find gaps analysis, right? And we go to the staff and say, here are the gaps, and here's what we're going to do about it. That's how we do it, right? That's a good change. We say, here's the gaps. Here's why we're falling short, and we need to go here, right? That's the typical change introduction, yes? The trouble is we're missing something. And it's not a justification. What the introduction to your change, your initiative needs to be, it needs to be not a justification, it needs to be a recognition. Because your people are not objective. When you say, by the way, we're terrible today, and we need to be terrible less, and we need to do these activities to be less terrible, the people who built the status quo are sitting there listening to you. They've worked their hearts out to build whatever client base, whatever process base you have, whatever manufacturing skills or processes. They've built all that, and now you're saying it's terrible. And they smile and they never say anything to you, but they go, oh, that's nice. Okay, and now you already got your 1 foot out of the canoe and you're drifting away from the dock. I'm not kidding, because here's the maxim you need to write down. And I'll give. Well, I guess we're giving slides. I didn't know that, but that's fine. Here's my maxim: if you honor people's past, they'll always let you take them to the future. If you honor people's past, they'll always let you take them to the future. That's the easiest way you can get everybody on side at the very start. Because what you should do is you should go around and say, I never ever start with a gap analysis in a presentation anymore, because it doesn't work. I say, you have done amazing things in the past, and I've done an hour or two's research. That's all this took. And I've gone through the various areas and said, you guys did that before, you guys did that before, you guys did that before. That took innovation, initiative, perseverance, tenaciousness. You guys are amazing. Look what you've done. And they start to go, yeah, you're right. We've done that. And the attitude is totally different. Because I'm coming to them with respect. I'm coming to them with honoring their contribution. And it's so simple. It's an hour or two. It changes the whole dynamic of the change, of the initiative that you're working to. So you want to research the positive attributes, not you did this, that was great, you did this. No, don't talk about that. Talk about the attitude that they exhibited to do that. That, wow, you were so tenacious. You found out, you dug deep and got the answers that we didn't have. That was amazing. And then you're talking about them personally now, right? Not just an outcome. Wow, yeah, we did that. Our team, we rocked. Yeah, we did. And now you just say, I just say to them, you know what, you've done all this stuff. Can you bring it again? Because we need it again. We got some more things to do. Can you help me? Wow, that's a totally different attitude though, isn't it? Isn't that a different? How would you like to be, you have your boss come to you like that and say, you've done this and this and this. Can you help me? Well, how would you feel? I'm rocking it. It's awesome. I can do that. And then the next thing, that's how simple this is. Honor people's past. Then they'll let you take them to the future. This next one is about affirming. And we need to affirm their current activities. Again, back to the gap analysis. What we do is we say, here's the deficit, here's the deficit, here's the deficit, here's the deficit, right? We list all of them, right? Just one and after another, and say, we list them. As though what they're doing to the people who are not objective, but are subjective, is going, oh, this will motivate them. Yes, my pointing out all your weaknesses, that's going to motivate you. And that's a poor view of human nature. It's not helpful. So what you want to do is realize that current activities are never the product of that person. They are the product of the organization's reinforcement over time. No one comes to work and says, oh, I read good to great on the weekend. I'm going to totally redo my job. It's never happened. It's never happened. Because they have a list in their head of what they're accountable for, and they already know if they don't do things, their life almost ends. Right? They get yelled at. Okay? They already have that list. Okay? And so their behaviors are not their own. They're reinforced by everything and every person in leadership and all the processes and measures that are in place. They're the product of those things. So you come to them and say, you know what, your actions, they've evolved because our industry was like this, and therefore we did this. Oh, that is totally legitimate. But those factors now have changed. Those underlying conditions have changed. So those things that were unbelievably positive in the past, we have to do differently now. Are you with me? Well, that's a totally different approach, isn't it? Again, it's a respectful entry, right? It's simple stuff, but it's just so, you spend an hour to this, you can change everything. You can change your engagement. It's so much fun doing this. And the final one here on the introduction side of it is depicting. How many people have presented to senior leadership a change initiative that you want to do? Put your hand up. How long does those take 3 or 4 minutes? No, they take a little longer? How long do you prepare for those presentations? Chris? Is it Chris?
Yeah.
Chris?
Several days.
Several days, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long do you prepare for the frontline presentation on the change? Not anywhere near that, right? Not anywhere near that. And my point is, as you go down the organizational chart, that presentation goes shorter and shorter and shorter. Until at the front line, you almost say, well, they're too busy, and they won't understand it anyway. So here's the problem, and here's what you need to do. Okay? And that's basically the presentation. I'm not lying, but I've only seen it like 1,000 times. All right? So my point is that we defend this as being, well, they're not interested in the details and the other things. And we defend it as practical. It's received as disrespectful. Received as disrespectful. So what happens is, as these people listen, they will never, ever make this comment to you, ever. I have never heard an employee go, and then tell you what they actually thought, because they're not silly now. They can lose their job, right? So what we do is they're going to go, and they go, they don't care, we don't know about the details, we don't understand. And I can't think of a better group to arm with the right perspective than the frontline folk. And so your presentation, although it needs to be concise and visual, it needs to be complete, because I have done this before where you gave the frontline people the right information and they come back to you and go, yeah, have you thought about that? And I go, you know what? No one has. Thank you so much. That rocks. You're going to save us so much grief and save this customer group so much hassle. That's awesome. Please, thank you. All right, so thanks for bringing that. So my point is, the same concise story at all levels. Arm your front line with perspective. So those honor people's past, affirm current activities, and because they're a product of the work environment. And the third one is depict the future. Tell them what could be. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell them what could be. I've done this for a large financial Equifax, their Canadian division. They were facing competition. They were going to close offices. I told them that. I said, we're probably going to close offices because we're facing a situation we've never faced before. But because I was honest with them and involved them, the president of the organization said, morale actually went up as we did this. That's crazy, eh? That's crazy. But we did some of the things we're talking about today. I'll talk about more. This is more tactical. So honor, affirm, and depict. So we're going to depict the future. We're painting a picture of the future as it goes. The fourth one here is how you engage. How many people are in charge of an area that they have technical competence over? Go ahead. That's most of you, I think. You're good at a particular area, and so you're a leader in that area. Put your hand up. Okay, almost everybody is that way. So what we do when we present a plan or an implementation plan to our people, we do a good job, yes? We try to nail down all the details, we do all that stuff, and here's what happens, I see though, more and more, is that we want to showcase up for our senior leadership all these decisions and all the details, and we tell them we've got all this stuff done. And then because we've told them, We come down to our folk now and say, here it is. And we're presenting the Magna Carta. And I want you to sign on, right? It's like the Declaration of Independence, right? It's like we want to just do this. And my point is, we are losing so much opportunity, and you're wasting time. What you could have done is less work and more engagement. And here's what I'm talking about. This is not an opportunity to display your expertise. It's not a display of your expertise. It shouldn't be. When you're involving your people, what you should say is you're trying to leverage their expertise. And David would agree in the presentation we just listened to, right? It's about exploiting and leveraging the people that we have. So I would say, I would like you to go with a half-finished idea and ask for their wisdom and insight in this respect. Here's the kind of thing that I do. I say, we have to do this because I'm leadership. I don't say, I think we can do this, because the only reason I'm in the job I am is to execute, yes? I'm a leader. I'm not here to say, oh, we don't know if we can do it. No, I'm here to execute policy. That's what I do, right? What the organization wants to do, I just make sure it gets done. I say, we're going to do this, but I've got real questions about how best to do that. Can you help me? Can you come alongside me and add your input and your expertise? Can you help me with that? And then what happens is they go, well, and if you were asked that question, and if you were staff, what would you say? Well, of course. That's a respectful entrance, yes? It's also a lot less work for the leader. And you're building engagement at the get-go. So what I do is I say, you guys have some experiences and some knowledge and some expertise that I don't have. But I think if we put our heads together, I think we can rock a plan that'll also not only take less time, but execute and deliver the outcomes we're looking for. Can you help me? Will you work with me on that? Well, who's going to say no? Who's going to say, no one's going to say no, right? All right? Have I done this before? Yes, at a little manufacturing company, I helped them cut their lead time from 8 weeks to 4 weeks in cycle time. And I worked with them, and I came to the president one morning. I said, I think I got an idea how we can get to about a week and a half. And the industry was at 4 weeks. We would kick literal backside, right, all over the planet if we did that. And he said, go ahead, Keith, go grab my staff. So I grabbed all the senior staff in a room, and I said, I got them on Friday afternoon, and I said, I got this idea. I think it might work. What do you think? What do you think about this? And for 3 hours, I kept answering the same question. It was, have you thought about, no, I haven't thought about that because I don't know that, you do. And, oh, but what about, have you thought, let me repeat it. I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about that. And so it was just a Friday afternoon. And I said, and so at the end of the day, I said, let's see what happens. Monday morning, I was in again at my client, and I walked into the room where I usually sat, and all of a sudden, one by one, the people who I'd worked with on the Friday afternoon came in and said, I've been thinking about that all weekend. I got some amazing ideas, and they were 10 times better than the ideas I had. It's used the structure I started with, but they got their lead time down to a week and a half. They made a ton of money. They were bought out by a multinational. It was unbelievable happy, and the morale was amazing because they made it happen. So this is not only easier, it's more effective. But the last one is our segue into where we're going for the rest of the morning. And I want you to because behavior in organizations is interesting. It's difficult. It's hard to see sometimes. And we look at symptoms as opposed to root cause. So I want you to examine any persistent behavior. There's a view of change management that says we have consistent messaging, pervasive messaging, they say, and then we look for resistance and we go target them. And we basically gaslight those people or attack them. It's like, it's not pretty. And I've seen that many, many times, and I'm not using that word lightly. But resistance is actually a symptom of a problem. It's a symptom of something else going on behind the scenes. And persistent behavior is always reinforced behavior. I sat down with the president of, it was a manufacturing, but they're also doing a large-scale retail operation. And he was telling me that a certain segment of his group and the product line, it was their second most popular product line, wasn't being delivered with the fill rate that they needed. They were out of stock on a lot of things all the time. And I said, and I knew the people he was talking about, I said, these are really good folk. How long have you been working on this? He goes, 2 years. And I'm going, I just can't believe it. So I smiled. I said, what's underneath the surface? Well, what do you mean? Well, no, what's underneath the surface, Dave? Well, there is that incentive. What's the incentive, Dave? Well, when they do the first product line, A, they get X incentive. When they do the B product line, they get half X incentive. Oh, okay. You've told them what's important. Just change that, and it'll be changed the next day. And that's always look below you, so that when you see anything that's resistant, rarely do I see people who actually come in to oppose something. But because they're being driven, I sat with two executives in a chemical company, and they said, one gentleman looked at the other and said, when I do what I'm supposed to do, he loses his bonus. And the other gentleman said, when I do what I'm supposed to do, he loses his bonus. I said, so what do you do? He says, we can go for a beer and negotiate. And I thought that was awesome. That's true. And I said, what do you think of your management who puts that in place, though? He says, we think they're not very smart. And we lose respect for them. All because we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. So have I shared this before? Yes. So really, what you want to do here is adjust the reinforcing structures. I did this for my master's thesis. I studied 72 organizations for 3 years. I'll get to that in a second. And I found out there's actual 4 main reinforcing elements underneath an organization. One is your people decisions, who gets promoted and why. Next is your performance assessments. Next is your performance measures. And then finally, there's rewards, recognition, and incentives. Those are the 4. And they hold behavior in place. And you need, if you have persistent behavior, it's because one of those elements, or many of them, is reinforcing that behavior, and you can talk forever. It will not change until you adjust that measure. And I've changed this before. McKesson, the billion-dollar healthcare organization, puts healthcare systems across North America and in the world, actually, and they have 100 change agents. They brought me in for 3 days to teach their change agents how to drive change. This was the keystone of that presentation, these 4. This works amazingly well. They said not only can we use it ourselves and make every change better, we can teach our clients to use that and we'll look like enablers. I said, that's the goal. That's the goal. So I want you to come back to your change. So let me just recap again what we just talked about. I want to just keep coming back to what you're doing, what you're working on, and bring it back. So we want to honor their past, and we want to affirm their present, the current activities. The current activities are a product of what we've reinforced. They're not the problem. We're the problem. They're just following our reinforcement and our lead. And we want to depict a great picture of the future and how we can get involved and what we can do and how we can grow and how we can make the company more successful. And then want to engage them with half-finished ideas. Maybe we're guilty of going too far with our plans and telling leadership, but then we don't really ask their opinion down below. And we're missing an opportunity for engagement. And finally, we want to examine persistent behavior. So what I want you to do is think about that. Take a minute or so, and this is thinking. I want you to take that change that you want to see, and I want you to look at those 5 and say, which one of those would be most applicable and help me most? And I'll give you a minute to think about that, please. Go ahead.